Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing the opposite video, one that you already have seen, which is my most disappointing reads of 2019. You will already have seen by the time this goes up my favourite reads of 2019, which I will put up there. But this is the counterpoint to that video, and I actually made one last year as well, which I will also link in the cards and also in the description. And basically I have just picked one book for each month of the year that I was disappointed by and didn't enjoy, and I feel like it's needed for balance, because I told you what my favourite books were, but you need to know also, I think, what I was disappointed by. So I've got 11 books to talk about because I'm pre-filming this in November, so I don't have a book yet for December. So what I will do in the description below, once I finish my December TBR, I will put in there what my most disappointing read was for the month. And yeah, let's get into it. Most of these, I've only actually got 3 physical books to show you, because actually if I really don't like a book, I don't keep it. And also quite a few of these, interestingly, were books that I picked up at random on audio. So yeah, let's get into it. So in January, I've got my red notebook as usual. In January, my most disappointing read for January was Lullaby by Leila Slimani. Hopefully I've said that right. This was a book that I had really high hopes for because it came out, I think, at the end of 2018 and caused quite a stir. There was a lot of hype around it. It's a literary fiction thriller, I think is how it's been marketed, and I think that's where I fell down with it. So basically the story is about this woman who takes a job as a nanny, and we know at the start of the story that she has been accused of killing the children. I think there's 2 kids. This was back in January and I was struggling to slightly remember it. She's been accused of killing at least one, if not both of them. And then it flips back in time and we gradually build up to the point where she gets arrested and what happens. And I just found it really dull. It's definitely heavy on the literary fiction, which is not always a genre that I get on that well with. It was very light on the thriller. I didn't think it was thrilling at all. And I just found the writing just really slow and ploddy, and I didn't like the protagonist. And yeah, I gave it 2 stars. She's got a second book out called Adele, but I've seen people that I trust talk about it and say it's pretty much the same as Lullaby, so I probably won't be picking it up. But yeah, that was definitely not for me, that one. Then in February, I've got the physical copy here, which is my friend Amy's copy, which she very kindly lent me, and this might be a bit of a unpopular opinion, but my most disappointing read of February was The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, which is also sometimes called The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, which I think was because The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo came out around the same time. Yeah, this is an odd one because it's one where I can understand the skill of the writing. Massive skill has gone into writing this. I just didn't connect to it. I had to push myself through it. I found myself bored a few times. It's really confusing and I didn't love it. This has been everywhere in the book world, but in case you've not heard about it, it's basically about a guy who wakes up in a different body every day. The murder of Evelyn Hardcastle has happened, and every day he wakes up in the same day, so it's a bit like Groundhog Day, and he's in a different body and he's got to try and work out who the killer is, and he can't leave until he does that. There's a good twist, there's a couple of good twists in this, but the main twist I thought was done well, but by that point I just didn't care, and I think it's overhyped. It's got a very nice cover, it's a very cool cover. Not for me. This will be going back to Amy because I don't need a copy of my own, so no, that was not for me either. Then in March I read The Woman in the Window by AJ Finn. I say I read it. I listened to it on audiobook and I got to about 70% of the way in. It's not a long audiobook and I just couldn't listen anymore. I think it's being turned into a film or a Netflix series or something, and I'll probably watch that because it's got a few people in the cast. I'm like, yeah, I will watch pretty much anything that you're in. But I just really hated the book. So it tells the story of a woman who's got agoraphobia, so she can't leave her house. And she sees something from her window, looking across into her neighbour's house. She sees something one day, and then it's whether or not she actually has seen it or if she is maybe losing her mind and is she an unreliable narrator and that kind of thing. It's the sort of thing I would usually love, because I love an unreliable narrator. I love a closed room mystery or setting, but I just could not get on board with this, the way this was written. I thought it was really clunky and slow, and it just kept like building tension and then just dropping it, and the tension would just dissolve and we would go on to something else, and the thing that we'd started over here didn't actually get finished, and I hate that in books. So yes, I DNF'd this, I think, about 70%, and then I went on Wikipedia, looked up the twist, and I was like, yep, I had predicted that. So not for me, definitely not for me. And I don't think I'm the only one that didn't enjoy that book, and to be honest, I probably wouldn't pick anything up by that author just because I really didn't like the style of that book. So no, not for me. How many times can I say not for me in this video? Take a shot every time I do that. Don't do that, drink responsibly. Right, May, I read The Darkness by Ragnor Jonasson. This was recommended on Bookstagram, and I can't remember anything about it, which is a good sign. I think it's a Scandinavian, like, murder mystery, and when I was going through my list, I was looking back through my GoodReads list, and I gave it 2 stars, or 1 star, so yeah, I think I had too high hopes for it, and then just found it a real slog. That's all I really remember, is that it was hard work, and I didn't enjoy it. In June, I read, oh no, sorry, let's do April first, shall we? This is another physical copy I've got, actually also from my friend Amy, although this is obviously not her fault. I read The Marriage Pact by Michelle Richmond. Yeah, I actually hated this book. This is a book that I finished it and I wanted to throw it across the room, because it did this thing. One of the things I hate in books is when an author has got a great premise and a great setup and then wastes it and it goes nowhere. That's what happened in this. So basically, this young couple gets married. As part of one of their wedding gifts, somebody gives them entry into the Marriage Pact, which is this group of people who all sign documents to say that they will stay together forever in their marriage. Divorce is not an option, and all of the couples are supposed to kind of support each other in their marriage in order to keep everything going. And it goes from there. Weird stuff happens. It's a cult novel. I don't think that's a spoiler because I think it's pretty obvious from even the back, and things get weird from there. Yeah, I really enjoyed the first 100 pages of this book, and I thought it was going to be a 4-star. By the time I got to the end, it was barely a 2-star. It was almost a 1-star. It went nowhere. It got weird, a bit like, what was I talking about just now? The Woman in the Window. It would start building towards something, and then we just never got there, and that doesn't work for me as a reader. So I was not a fan of this one at all. Then in June, now this is another potentially controversial opinion. This is a book that's like won awards, I think, or been shortlisted for lots of awards. It's blurbed by Barack Obama on the back, and I read it and I could not understand the hype, and that's Educated by Tara Westover. I really wanted to like this. I was really hoping to like this. It's a memoir of Tara Westover's life. She was raised in a family who believed that the end of the world were coming. They didn't believe in hospitals or schools or anything to do with the government. So she didn't have a birth certificate or anything like that. And it's about her basically growing up and finding her way to education. And what she's done with her life is amazing, and I can see why people are inspired by it. But the way this was written, I couldn't really see the point. There's no like overarching message, or it just felt like it wasn't really going anywhere. And again, it was another one that I had to push through and make myself read. It's not long. It's 380 pages, so average size length. I don't understand the hype with this. I didn't have any emotional response to this whatsoever. Maybe that's because I'm dead inside. But I've read other memoirs this year and other non-fiction that I found really moving, and this just wasn't. And I don't understand the hype around this book at all. Right, then in July I read Hex by Thomas Olde Heuvett. Hopefully I've said that right. That was sent to me by my friend Steph. It's basically the story of a village where there is a witch that haunts the village, and she just randomly turns up and like stands in the corner of your house, and everyone has to basically try and ignore her and get on with their lives. She means that they can't leave the village. They can leave for a few hours a day to go to work, but if they try and leave for any longer length of time, they basically start getting suicidal thoughts, and then if they stay away even longer, they will end up killing themselves. And that's the premise of the story. This again had a great setup. I was really interested in it. The first 50-ish pages were really good, very creepy. There's a few things that happen and I was like, which I love in a book. But again, it went nowhere. Are you seeing the theme here in books that I don't like? again, it just felt like it was building towards something and then it didn't quite happen. There are a few things in the book that I was really uncomfortable with. There are a few scenes that I was like, this is not okay. I can't recommend it. I can't say that I'll be particularly excited to pick anything else up by that author. Then in August, I read Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantero for the Scooby-Doo-a-thon. And yeah, that book was not for me either. So I mentioned on Twitter when I was reading it, or when I nearly finished it, I listened to it on Scribed, that I was struggling with it because I just couldn't connect with what was going on, and the way it was written was really repetitive. One of the characters, the author described her hair like every other page, it felt like. It's basically a Scooby-Doo retelling, imagining what the kids would be like if they were grown up and then going back to basically reinvestigate their last case. And I found the relationships between them were nice and interesting, but I just couldn't get a read on it. And then someone said, oh, it's supposed to be like a B horror movie, and I was like, okay, that's why I'm not getting this, because that's really not my kind of thing. I don't get the humour. I just found it a bit dull. I knew I wasn't enjoying it because I ended up listening to it on 1.75 speed, which I never do. I usually listen to it just on like normal speed, and I just wanted to get through it and get it finished because it was the group book, so I wanted to finish it. And yeah, not for me at all. Right, 2 left. In October, I listened to... Oh no, 3 left, sorry, because let's do September, shall we, before October? In September, I read Cross Her Heart by Sarah Pinborough, again via Scribed. Now, this was my second Sarah Pinborough. Back in August, I also listened to Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough, and I'm not sure which order they're going. I think Behind Her Eyes is first. Don't quote me on that. And I thoroughly enjoyed Behind Her Eyes. It's one of the creepiest things, like the craziest things I've ever read. It was completely insane, and actually I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. Probably because I've not read something like that for quite a while, so it was kind of a nice surprise. So I then saw, what was this one called? Cross Her Heart, also on Scribe, and I was like, okay, let's try another Sarah Pinborough. Totally other end of the scale. Behind Her Eyes, I think I gave 4 or 5 stars because I just thought it was brilliant. This one... I actually, before I sat down to make this video, had to look it up again on GoodReads to remember what the storyline even is, because I just couldn't remember it. And it's just a very kind of run-of-the-mill, tropey, domestic drama. It's not even really a thriller, I don't think. Yeah, it's just about this woman who's got a teenage daughter. We know that the woman has done something at some point in her life, and she's hiding from someone. And then stuff starts happening from there, and I can't really say anymore, A, because of spoilers, but B, I can't really remember it that well. And yeah, again, this is another one that I finished listening to on like 1.75 speed just to get through it. But yeah, not great. So the jury's out on Sarah Pinborough for me. I'm going to try another one of hers probably like in the new year. So if you've got any that you want to recommend, then leave me a comment, any good ones. But this one, I just, no, not a fan. Then in October, again on audiobook, I picked up Our House by Louise Candlish. This is my first Louise Candlish book, and I picked it up because it was marketed as a thriller. It was in the thriller section. It's under thriller in GoodReads. Absolutely not a thriller. Not a thriller. It's a domestic drama, and I think this is where I fell down with the Cross Her Heart. I can't even remember what the title is 2 seconds after I've said it. I think that was my problem with Cross Her Heart as well by Sarah Pinborough. I'm not into domestic dramas. I'm just not. And Our House was a domestic drama, and I got really bored. So we're basically following a woman who comes home from work one day, and there are people moving into her house, and all of her stuff has been taken out, and she's got to figure out what the hell is going on. And we also get her husband's point of view, or her estranged husband's point of view as well, and it moves back in time, back and forth in time, sort of to when they were together, and then why they split up, and how we've all got to this point. And I was just really bored, and I kind of went into it thinking, oh, maybe there's going to be some sort of like psychological edge to this, like, is she an unreliable narrator, is there going to be some great twist? No, you know from the start, pretty much the first 50 pages, you know how it's going to end, and that's fine. And I mean, if you were new to the genre, it's probably a good one, because it's quite gentle. There are a few twists and turns, but like there's nothing, it's not like Karen Slaughter, it's not horrific or anything like that. I was just bored out of my mind. So yeah, I'm not sure if I would pick up any more from her. I'd have to have a seriously good look into it before I did, because that one was not for me. And then finally this month in November I listened again on audiobook to The Twisted Ones by Kingfisher. Now by the time this video goes up you will have had my November wrap up with my full thoughts / rant in that video. But the basic premise is a woman's grandmother dies and she has to go and clear out her house. And while she's there, she finds a notebook left behind by her grandfather talking about the Twisted Ones. And her grandfather died of dementia, so she kind of takes it with a pinch of salt to start with. But as she starts to read his diary, things start happening. And this is marketed as a horror. And there were some creepy bits, that's for sure. I didn't find it that horrifying though. And again, I just thought, you know, great premise, and then it went nowhere. I didn't love the writing either. And overall I just gave it 2 stars, so that's definitely been my most disappointing read this month. And then like I said, for December I will put in the description once I've read the books, which is my least favourite for the month. So yeah, I don't usually do negative videos on this channel, but I feel like if I'm going to put my favourite reads of the year out, I should also put my most disappointing reads of the year out so that you can get the balance. I think overall what we've learned from this video is that I don't like domestic dramas, and I hate books where the author's got a really great premise and then goes nowhere with it, because it's really hard to come up with a good premise and then just to wreck it and let it all go is really annoying. So yeah, leave me a comment below with what your most disappointing reads of the year have been and why, because I think it's interesting to look at why people don't like books just as much as it is to look at why they do like books. And I will see you in the next video with something a lot more positive. Thanks guys, bye!